I don't want to go to my dad's house anymore since I caught my stepmom talking trash about my mom. The thought of spending another weekend at my dad's house fills me with a kind of dread I have never experienced before. It is a heavy, sinking feeling that started subtly but has now completely overwhelmed me. And it all comes down to one moment, one overheard conversation that shattered the already fragile peace. I am 16 years old, caught in the middle of the life my parents built and then decided to live separately. They divorced about 4 years ago, a decision that reshaped our family dynamic but never destroyed its core, at least not until recently. For context, my parents were incredibly young when they had my older brother, who is 18 now. They were practically kids themselves, teenagers navigating the immense responsibility of parenthood. But here is the thing, they rose to the occasion. They did not let their youth become an excuse. They studied hard, worked tirelessly, and managed, against the odds, to build a stable, loving life for us. There is my brother, me, the middle child at 16, and our much younger sister, who is just 3 years old. After the divorce, a routine settled in. My little sister and I would spend every weekend at Dad's place, a consistent rhythm in our split lives. My brother, being older and with his own schedule, joined us whenever he could. For a while, it worked. It felt normal, or at least, our version of normal. We adapted. But about 1.5 years ago, the equilibrium shifted. My dad started dating someone new. And honestly, from my perspective, she has been a disruptive force from the moment she entered the picture. I genuinely tried to be welcoming, or at least, consistently respectful. I was raised to be polite, and I made a conscious effort never to be rude or difficult. But it felt like swimming against a current of negativity. Her favorite topic, especially when directed at me, seemed to be weight and healthy eating. She would make comments constantly, little digs disguised as concern. Are you sure you want that second cookie? Or maybe skip the sugary drinks this weekend? It drove me crazy. I am active, I work out nearly every day. I generally eat well, focusing on balanced meals during the week. Weekends were my time to relax the rules slightly, to enjoy a dessert without feeling scrutinized. But in her presence, especially in what was supposed to be our weekend home, indulging in a simple sweet felt like committing a serious offense. Sugar, it seemed, was contraband in her newly established domain. Things escalated significantly about 6 months ago when she officially moved in with my dad. From that point forward, my visits went from slightly uncomfortable to genuinely distressing. The house, our house, the place where we had celebrated birthdays, weathered teenage moods, and built weekend memories, began to transform. She started redecorating, replacing familiar things with her own style, which, frankly, felt cold and impersonal to me. It was not just about aesthetics, it felt deeper, more symbolic. Pictures of my brother, my sister, and me started disappearing from the walls and shelves, replaced by generic art or photos of her and my dad. It felt like she was systematically erasing our history within those walls, trying to create a space where our presence was minimized, almost as if we were inconvenient remnants of a past she wanted to overwrite. The house stopped feeling like a home and started feeling like her territory, a place where we were merely temporary guests. Her attitude seemed to sour further after moving in. She appeared to be perpetually annoyed by something, and often, that something involved my 3-year-old sister. Toddlers are messy, it is practically in their job description. Toys inevitably get scattered, crumbs appear magically underfoot. My dad and I were always diligent about cleaning up after her, understanding that this is just part of life with a young child. But if even one stray block or doll was left out, and my dad was not around to witness the interaction, she would direct her frustration at me, calling me sloppy or irresponsible under her breath or with pointed sighs. It was exhausting and deeply unfair. The feeling of being an outsider in my own father's home grew stronger each weekend. It reached a point where the dread would start building on Friday afternoons. Last weekend, I genuinely did not want to go. I pleaded with my mom, but the custody arrangement is what it is, and my dad was counting on us. As it turned out, he had to work an overnight shift, leaving me and my little sister at the house with his girlfriend. Despite my reservations, the evening started okay. I made dinner for my sister and me, we played with her toys, and I made sure to tidy up meticulously afterward, and then we settled on the couch to watch cartoons. It was calm, almost peaceful. But the peace was short-lived. Later in the evening, his girlfriend decided, without much warning, to invite a couple of her friends over. The quiet atmosphere vanished, replaced by loud chatter, laughter, and music. It was too much for my little sister, who was getting sleepy anyway, so I carried her into the bedroom we shared, read her a story, and tucked her into bed. She drifted off quickly, exhausted from the day. After she was asleep, I felt worn out myself but decided I needed a glass of water before settling down to play some games on my computer. As I walked quietly down the hallway towards the kitchen, trying not to disturb anyone, I heard voices drifting from the living room where she and her friends were gathered. And then, I heard it, her voice, clear as day, talking about my family. Talking about my mom. It is just so challenging, she was saying, her tone a blend of feigned sympathy and sharp judgment, trying to raise these girls properly when their mother is, well, you know, setting that kind of example. There was a pause, then she continued, her voice softening slightly but losing none of its edge. But the little one, she is adorable. So sweet. She almost called me mommy the other day, can you believe it? It melted my heart. Honestly, once Kevin, my dad, and I get married, I am going to talk to him seriously about going for full custody of the youngest. You just cannot provide real stability for a child when you are reportedly hooking up with a different guy every other week. Hearing those words, it was like a physical blow. Time seemed to stop. The air felt thick and cold. I had disliked her before, felt uncomfortable and unwelcome around her. But in that moment, hearing her tear down my mother, who has always been loving and supportive, who co-parents respectfully with my dad despite their past, and hearing her casually plot to take my baby sister away. I have never, ever felt such intense, burning hatred for another human being in my entire life. It was pure venom aimed directly at the heart of my family. I froze there for a second, then retreated back down the hall, my heart pounding, my hands shaking. I did not get the water. I just went back to the bedroom, sat on the floor beside my sleeping sister, and tried to process the sheer awfulness of what I had just heard. Telling my mom was out of the question, it would devastate her, make her angry and hurt, and I could not bear to be the cause of that pain. Telling my dad felt impossible too. I was incandescently angry at him for bringing this woman, this monster, into our lives, for being so blind to her true nature. That night solidified everything. When the weekend was over, and my sister and I went back to my mom's, I felt a profound sense of relief wash over me. We ended up spending the following weekend with our maternal grandparents instead of going to dad's. And the truth settled deep in my bones, I never want to go back to my dad's house again. Not as long as she is there. The place that was once a second home now feels tainted, hostile. I hate it there now. It is no longer a safe harbor, but the source of my deepest anxieties. Update. So, after I initially shared what I was going through, the whole situation with my dad's fiancée, her toxic behavior towards me, and especially the horrible things she said about my mom, I started reading the feedback and advice people offered online. And honestly, it threw me into a complete tailspin. While the support was appreciated, some of the comments highlighted the potential legal ramifications of her custody comments, painting scenarios that absolutely terrified me. The thought that this woman, this person I now saw as genuinely malicious, could actually try to take my baby sister away from my mom, away from me, it became an obsessive fear. I kept replaying her words, imagining worst-case scenarios. It culminated in a full-blown anxiety attack. I was sobbing uncontrollably, hyperventilating, completely convinced I was about to lose my sister to this witch, as I had started thinking of her. I could not function. I could not think straight. I just felt this overwhelming panic. My mom found me in this state, saw how distressed I was, and immediately knew something was seriously wrong. Her first instinct was to take me to the emergency room. Her plan was to drop my little sister off at my dad's place on the way, but the mere suggestion sent me into another wave of panic. I begged her, pleaded with her through tears, "Please, Mom, don't leave her there. Please take her with us." I was so visibly distraught, so utterly terrified, that she immediately changed plans and bundled both my sister and me into the car and headed straight for the hospital. We spent the afternoon there. The bright lights and sterile smell of the ER were a stark contrast to the emotional storm raging inside me. I was given medication to help calm me down, and I got to talk to a really kind and understanding doctor. She listened patiently, validated my feelings, and prescribed something short-term to help manage the acute anxiety. Crucially, she also gently suggested to my mom that I might benefit from ongoing therapy, and perhaps even family therapy involving both my parents, to navigate these complex dynamics. That evening, back in the safety and quiet of our own home, after the chaos of the hospital visit had subsided, I finally let everything out. The dam broke. I told my mom absolutely everything I had been holding back, the constant undermining comments from the fiancé, the way she made me feel unwelcome, the redecorating that felt like erasure, the unfair accusations about messes, and most importantly, the conversation I overheard, her venomous words about my mom and her chilling plan to pursue custody of my sister. Now, it is important to understand something about my parents. Despite the divorce, they have always maintained a remarkably good relationship. They are genuinely friends. We have done family dinners, attended school events together, and they have always presented a united front to us kids. They never, ever fought in front of us. So, witnessing my mom's reaction was startling. After hearing everything, especially the custody part, she called my dad. And she was furious. It was a controlled fury, the kind that is scarier than shouting, but her voice was steel. Through it all, she kept reassuring me, holding my hand, telling me, "Everything is going to be okay, sweetheart. Your sister is staying right here with us. That is not going to change, no matter what anyone says or tries." Her certainty was a lifeline. A little while later, my dad came over to our house. He looked worried, maybe a little lost. My mom, calm but firm, asked me to tell him exactly what happened, exactly what I had heard and experienced. I recounted the story again, this time looking directly at my dad. He listened intently, his face growing more serious with every word. He did not interrupt me once. When I finished, the first thing he did was apologize. Sincerely. He said he had been oblivious, that he had not paid enough attention to the changes in the house beyond superficial things, and admitted he should have been far more considerate of how those changes were affecting my siblings and me. He confessed that he genuinely believed his fiancée was a good person, explaining that she never showed that side of herself when he was around. But then he looked me straight in the eye and stated, unequivocally, that his children, me, my sister, and my older brother, were, and always would be, his absolute top priority. Nothing and no one came before us. Later that evening, my parents spent a long time talking in the kitchen while they cooked dinner together, a familiar, comforting ritual from before the divorce, now happening under tense circumstances. They gently asked me to give them some privacy, so I escaped into some computer games while my little sister napped nearby. I could hear the low murmur of their voices but could not make out the words. Eventually, they came out and explained the plan they had worked out. Until my dad figures things out definitively with his fiancée, or maybe ex-fiancée now? The status is unclear. My sister and I will spend our weekends at my grandma's house instead of his. He will come visit us there. It is a temporary solution, a way to give everyone space and ensure my sister and I feel safe and comfortable, while he deals with the fallout. So, we will see how this first weekend under the new arrangement goes. It feels like a step in the right direction, a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. The anxiety has not vanished completely, but it is manageable now. Knowing my parents are united on this, prioritizing our well-being, makes all the difference. Thank you to everyone who offered advice and support, even if processing some of it initially sent me into a panic. It ultimately helped push me to speak up, and for that, I am incredibly grateful. It feels like we might just be able to navigate our way back to some kind of stability.